Hi, I'm here in the constituency of Ceredigion on what is quite a chilly morning, but I'm sure the candidates and the canvassers would rather be walking around in this kind of weather than in the weather we had last week when it was raining quite heavily and the weather was quite bad. So it's a chilly morning, but a bright one here in Ceredigion. We're in Nation.Cymru, which is a town right at the southern tip of the constituency, right on the River Tavy, where the constituency turns into Carmarthen East and Dinefwr further to the down to the south from here. So this is quite an unusual seat really, because it's a marginal between Plaid Cymru and the Liberal Democrats. So this is a marginal that isn't really replicated anywhere else in the country. And it's a very, very tight marginal. There are only about 104 votes in it at the 2017 elections. Ceredigion, it was a Liberal constituency since really the late 19th century. Then at the end of the 60s, early 70s, it became a Labour seat, and then it switched back to the Liberals in the middle of the 1970s. It was a Liberal seat until about 1992, when Cynnag Davies of Plaid Cymru took the seat. Then it was Plaid Cymru until 2005, when the Liberal Democrat Mark Williams took the seat back from Plaid Cymru, and then back in 2017, by that most marginal of margins, it became a Plaid Cymru seat again under the very, very young MP Ben Lake. This is an unusual seat in more ways than one, not just because it's a Plaid Cymru and Liberal Democrat seat, but it's also in many ways a almost a four-way marginal, because although the focus is all on Plaid Cymru and the Lib Dems, as the Lib Dems keep telling us, it's a two-horse race. I don't quite agree with that, because Plaid Cymru and Lib Dems are on about 11,000 votes each, but Labour aren't very far behind. They got about 8,000 votes in 2017, and the Conservatives aren't quite that far behind either. They got about 7,000 votes in 2017. So even though the Liberal Democrats would like us to think that only them or Plaid Cymru could win here, actually the Labour Party or the Conservative Party could perhaps surprise us all and come through the middle and win this seat as well. So what do we know about this seat? Well, on paper it should probably be a Liberal Democrat gain, because in 2017 they were on about 6% in the polls. They've been up to about 18%. They've perhaps gone back down now to about 12% in the polls since the general election was called. But it's still a big upward swing for them across the UK. So on paper they should think, well, we need about a 0.3% swing to take this seat. We can probably do that. It should probably be quite an easy gain for us. In practice, things probably aren't quite that simple. It's probably going to come down to a battle of popularity between the incumbent, Ben Lake, and the previous MP, Mark Williams, who held the seat from 2005 until 2017. And focus has been on the battle between these two men who are in their own ways very popular locally. Ben Lake and Mark Williams very highly spoken of by the people of Ceredigion. So it's probably going to come down to a preference for one person, one MP or one former MP or another. The interesting thing in this seat might be to look at not so much the Plaid Cymru and Liberal Democrat vote, but also the Labour and Conservative vote. The Conservatives in particular, I think, because Ceredigion did vote quite heavily to remain in the EU by about 54%. It was one of the few constituencies or local authority areas in Wales that did vote to remain in the EU. But you have to wonder that with the Liberal Democrats and Plaid Cymru coming out very heavily to remain in the EU, where do those leave votes then go. And because there's quite a lot of them. There's about sort of 45% Leave voters. If they don't go for Plaid Cymru, if they don't go for the Lib Dems, where do those votes go? Do they go to the Conservatives? If that happens, then that's 7,000 Conservative votes. It balloons up. I must admit, I haven't really seen any kind of Conservative campaign here. I haven't seen any signs, really. There hasn't been any Conservative literature through the door. So it would be very surprising if they did get all of those votes. But it's not beyond the realms of the possibility, not beyond the realms of imagination, with the national Conservative message being to get Brexit done. That might tempt many of those in Ceredigion. It might tempt a few of the people in this very rural, very agricultural based area as well. I think one thing that has surprised me a little bit about the campaign here in Ceredigion is the amount of focus in the literature coming through the door on Joe Swinson of the Liberal Democrats. Had a lot of pamphlets coming through the door, a lot of paper coming through the door, not so much mentioning the Mark Williams, the former Member of Parliament here, but rather Joe Swinson, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. And that's been quite surprising, I think, because Mark Williams is very popular in this area, and even though Joe Swinson may have her fans, I can't see her being as popular in this area, perhaps, as she would be in some parts of the UK, such as London, for instance. The Liberal Democrats in Ceredigion, they're not really the Liberal Democrats elsewhere. This is perhaps a more conservative rural seat. And perhaps the people they actually do need to win over, the kind of unionist votes in this area, aren't going to be as keen on stopping Brexit as they may be in other parts of the country. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of knock-on effect that's going to have on the vote. And I think it's going to be very tight here at the end of the day, I think. So we haven't had any specific polling for this constituency, or no polling done in public anyway, or released in public. The only thing we have had is a YouGov MRP poll, which included Ceredigion, and that suggested quite an easy win for Plaid Cymru by about 10% of the vote. I'd be actually very surprised if the margin is that big. I'm expecting quite a tight result again this time. And it's worth looking at the previous YouGov MRP poll back in 2017, where it got it disastrously wrong in Ceredigion, predicting that Plaid Cymru would actually come third here behind the Conservatives, with about 10% less of the vote than they eventually got. So I think the whatever YouGov's MRP polls method in Ceredigion, they seem to be slightly askew. So I'd take that one with a pinch of salt, I think.